You may ask, can you live off-grid with no money? No. Simple as answer is no. That's because there's a lot of expenses. Not nearly as expensive as the city, because that you have your mortgage or your rent or that big expense on top of all the necessities that you need and the other expenses that you might need, like a phone and all that stuff. Even if you don't have nothing to put on your piece of land, the first thing you want to do is get land. A lot of people go straight into wanting to look into places and all of the other stuff that they are going to need. But where are you going to put it if you don't have the land? Step 2, make sure you have shelter. It could be a storage shed that you transform into a tiny home. As long as it's a certain dimension, you do not need a building permit. A lot of people think that you need a building permit, but you do not unless if it's a certain so many feet by so many feet. Always look into your township's page to see what their land codes and all that stuff is, because even though the county might say something, the county is just the basic, but the township, who is the one who goes out and does all the stuff that you need for that spot that you're at. One of the cheapest ways is to move like a mobile home onto your piece of land. Like, they're free in a lot of places on Facebook Marketplace, but it's the cost to get it moved. We were going to finance a trailer until we found out how much it was going to cost to move it to our piece of land. So what we decided to do was we decided to cancel our lease and use the $1,600, you might as well say, to find something for $1,000 on Facebook Marketplace, like an RV home. As long as you have the standards done and up to where it has to be livable, you can live in an RV. But you have to look at all the other stuff that's also included. Another thing that is really important about the expenses is making sure you have some kind of income. If it's making money for like online stuff or DoorDash or Lyft or any of those platforms, you can make a good living off from those platforms. But we do that on top of my husband's full-time job. Another thing is gas expenses. So you got to mixture between gas and fuel, which you need gas for the generator, which I have a video on how we have power. Got to make sure you have your fuel expenses, which is either propane or diesel or however you heat your house. And you're going to need propane for the stove unless you just do an electric stove or whatever floats your boat. So you got to make sure you have gas or fuel for the vehicles, because how are you going to move this thing if you don't have the gas or the fuel to be able to move it? That's another thing, because you never know, you might want to move it to a different spot on your property. That's the one thing I like about living this way, is I don't have to keep my house in one place. Another big thing And I know a lot of you city folks do it because I did it too when I lived in the city. I was born and raised in the city, and I love being out in the middle of the woods. Go to as many food banks as you can as possible. Yes, there might be a bunch of stuff on there that's like off-brand, and you're like, oh, I don't like that. Well, guess what? Free food is better than no food. And it will cost only half the amount for your monthly grocery bill than it will just paying for groceries. We've saved a lot of money for groceries because of food banks. So that is one thing that I do really highly recommend is food bank. I got my little notes right here for this video. So if you're wondering why I'm looking all the time. Got a water system. Okay. How do you have water? How do you pump it? How do you heat it up? How do you do all that extra stuff? Well, I have other videos explaining on how we take our showers, how we do dishes, because you need hot water to do that stuff. And I also have it mentioned that we have a holding tank. So we take gallons of water and go to like one of those pumps at the park, and we use it and pump it and fill the water up, unless if you're really close with someone and they allow you to get like 50 gallons of water without charging you, which thanks to my mother-in-law, because she lets us go there every weekend to do laundry, get water, take showers, and do everything that we need without the rush of only having so much water in the holding tank. Another big thing is waste management. There are multiple ways to do that. A lot of RV campers, whatever you call them, have their own holding tank for the toilets. Some people get the compost toilets and they compost their stuff for their gardens for next spring and all that stuff. And some people have someone come out and put a septic in, which that's another extra expense you got to think about. There's a lot to it that people don't think about. Overall, utilities is going to cost anywhere between like $50,000 to $150,000, depending on how you decide to get your stuff set up. But typically, startup, it's always going to start around $5,000. Like I said at the beginning of the video, first thing you want to do is get your piece of land. My husband got ours for $3,500, so that was pretty cheap. And then he had already had a generator, so he went and he bought a couple more because it's always good to have a backup. And then he had a diesel heater from the previous year that really enjoyed, so decided to get another one because Mother Nature decided that we're going to have negative weather lately. So, with all of this being said, because it's a 9-minute video already, there's a lot that you have to think about. And the biggest thing you need to think about is, can I live this way? That's something that a lot of people do not think of. So, if you want to know how we do it, I have previous videos, and I'm going to be making new videos explaining everything. So, stay tuned for all.